Afternoon, everyone. My name is Kenyatta Malloy, and I work with the University Career Center. I'm the Career Events Coordinator, and I'm here today welcoming you to our Building Your Brand and Your Virtual Presence workshop. This workshop is to help you figure out, how to get the job you want by telling your personal story. Getting the job you want is a lot more than just applying and sending in a resume and a cover letter. It's definitely about the aura that you can bring to a job and the company's culture as well. Next slide, please. So this event webinar will be recorded. So if you don't possibly want your screen to show, your face to show on the screen, please go ahead and cut your camera off. But this will be available by the end of the week on our YouTube channel at UMD Career Center on YouTube. Next slide. And a few housekeeping items before we get started. Like I said, this will be recorded and available in the next few days on our channel. If you need to catch up on any notes that you may have missed, please make sure everyone has their microphones muted so that so there's no feedback as I'm giving the presentation and everyone can hear clearly in the recording. And then if you have any questions that come up during the presentation, please feel free to leave them in the chat. You can chat them to me privately or for everyone to see. We'll answer them at the end, but feel free to send them as we go along, just in case you think you might forget something, okay? All right, so jumping right in, what is a personal brand? As you can see on the screen, I have a definition from personalbrand.com, which is a consulting company that works with, a consulting firm that works with 6- and 7-figure companies as well as individuals who want to build and define their brand. So they say a personal brand is a widely recognized and largely uniform perception or impression of an individual based on their experiences, expertise, competencies, actions, and or achievements within a community, industry, or the marketplace at large. So that is a great definition, but I'm sure we're all still thinking, well, what does that mean? In today's world, as you all know, with social media and the different technologies we have, it's a very look at me, I'm trying to grab everyone's attention, I'm trying to prove my worth kind of world. Add that to our oversaturated job market, and establishing your presence in your industry is a must. So that is where a personal brand comes in. It's a lot more than just a great logo and posting consistent pictures. It's about positioning yourself as the industry, as an expert, or at least a tastemaker within the industry that you are looking to join. Whether that is by exemplifying your strengths and your skills, you want to not only join the workforce, but become an integral part of it. So by creating a personal brand and creating a story along with your your career journey, you're able to develop how you're seen within your industry. It's important to remember that when you graduate and you join the workforce, yes, you're joining a business or organization, but you have to remember that you are a business as well. So instead of marketing a product or a store, you are marketing your services, you're marketing your expertise, and most importantly, your time. That is why creating this brand is most important. It also creates building blocks to help set you up for success in the future and help you make sure that you're reaching certain goals, both personal and professional, in order to get to where you go in the long term of your career. It helps you establish kind of like a clear trajectory of where you want to go within your career. Okay. Ethan. So why is a personal brand important? Besides some of the things that I just named in our little introduction, it's important to have your personal brand because it sets you apart from other candidates that and aligns your skills and experiences, again, with your personal story. You're not just a set of classes that you took in college. You aren't just the list of jobs that are on your resume. You are a unique person and you bring certain skills to the table. And the only way to demonstrate that prior to starting a job with an employer is telling that story through the means of communication that you have. And right now, in the current state of our world, we're all digital. We're doing the best that we can in our COVID pandemic times. So a digital brand is the most important way to do that. All employers are going to be looking for you online. And so by having a presence on multiple sites or being searchable mainly is what's most important there. So again, let's start off with differentiation. It helps you stand out from the crowd. As the nature of our work is continuing to shift and change, having a great job does not guarantee that you'll have great career success for the long term. And your competencies no longer just determine what, no longer depend on what you know. It's about who you know. And it's about the conversation that you create around the work that you produce, as well as within your industry. So it's important to figure out what makes you different rather than what makes you better. It's very possible that with UMD, I've noticed that there are a lot of stellar students. You can have, I like to call them your college twin, you know, say you have two people came into college at the same year, we're in the same major, we take the same classes all throughout and have pretty similar GPAs. How will you position yourself once you graduate and get into the job market in a way that makes you the best candidate to take that job or move into that job or position over your college twin? That's where telling your story comes in. Your personal brand can also help you build a network, and building your network across multiple platforms demonstrates versatility and the depth of your knowledge. So there are 4 things that come out of building your network that I think are most important to talk about, and we'll go more in depth in those later on in a few videos that I have to show you. The first is knowledge. So across these platforms, you can demonstrate what you know about the industries and the field that you're joining. You get to schmooze or mingle and connect with people in your industry or field, identify certain tastemakers and prominent leaders, and places like LinkedIn where you can actually connect with them depending on how you engage. There's personal involvement, again, when you can share your work, your resources, and your services, whether that is you completed a project on campus for a class assignment and you decide to make a video and talk about your findings, or you built a robot and you want to post pictures or talk about that assignment. There are different ways to engage with the online world based on the schoolwork that you've done or your freelancing opportunities before you actually join the workforce. And then lastly, dialogue feeds right into that. It allows you to ask questions, brainstorm, and start to learn from others as you develop your professional experience. Next is employability. Easily said, it leads to opportunities. As you start to develop your network and continue certain conversations and build, that can lead to job interviews, job placements, promotions, partnerships, or even speaking engagements. And in today's world, it's more important to position yourself as employable than look for employment security. Just in this year alone, we've seen that a lot of people who thought they were secure in their jobs, they weren't, just because maybe the business couldn't handle it financially, economically, it just depends. But if you always are learning, if you're always growing, and if you're always developing your story and the connections that you have, continuing your professional journey, even in times like a pandemic, won't be as hard as it is if you just had a resume or cover letter that you're blasting out everywhere. So you want to make sure you're updating your skills and that you're desirable to employers all the time. And then last but not least, someone is always watching. So whether you know it or not, someone is always going to be screening you online, whether you're actively job searching or not. If you have a LinkedIn account, I'm sure you get the emails that they send you or the notifications when you log in that says, you appeared in 20 searches this week, or this person reviewed your profile. I know I'm not actively job searching, but I always get those notifications. So it's just important to know that recruiters or future employers, and even your peers, they're always looking because people want to know who you are. And as job seekers, it's important to remember that you don't just accept a job, you are accepting a community. And it's just as much the job of the recruiter to make sure that you fit the culture of the company as it is for you to decide if the company culture fits you. So with all that being said, Ethan, next slide, please. Oh, one takeaway from today that I think is most important is that developing a personal brand does take work, and it's not going to happen overnight. But once you do, the benefits are endless. And we just went through some of those benefits, but there are going to be different stages throughout developing your personal brand. And it's important to know that even when you're get to a point of being satisfied, there's always something that can be tweaked or changed or developed a bit more when it comes to your journey. So don't think that you can apply all the information you want in the time you want today and it's going to work itself out. No, like, give it time. It takes time to develop content. It takes time to develop connections. It takes time to put yourself out there. So one step at a time. Next, please. So where do I begin? The best place to start is by completing an online audit of yourself. You're going to want to find out what's currently out in the World Wide Web about you. Most importantly, clean up your social media accounts. I know we all have them. And at the very least, if you don't want to necessarily clean up your social media account, make sure that if it's a personal account, it's not necessarily associated with your first and last name, your name that you are using to apply to jobs. For that reason being, when you do a Google search, it will come up. So start with Google. Google yourself. People are going to be Googling you at every stage in your career. So you should know what is out there and what they are seeing. You don't want someone else to have the upper hand on you. And the best way to do that is to see it for yourself. Review your images, as well as review the content on the Google search pages. And it's notable to even realize that things you may like or favorite on different social networks can also pop up in the search for you. So when you're online, it's very important to be aware of the things that you are giving your attention to. Personally, if you Google Kenyatta Malloy, there are plenty of pages of content, but there are three that have 3 pages of Google results that correspond with me and my internet presence. Everything from my Pinterest account to my Upwork account to my LinkedIn. So anything associated with your name most likely will come across Google. So it's, like I said, always good to audit yourself and start there. Second, you're going to want to define yourself and your values. That's sometimes easier said than done, but in order to articulate your value to someone else, you have to understand yourself first. So a couple questions that you can start to develop and find out more about yourself, and what you want to do is, what is important to you? What do you value? What do I do that I'm most proud of? Who do I want to impact the most? What ignites or breaks your heart? And what are you known for as the go-to person for? Those are kind of just some brain teasers to start to develop yourself and define yourself. It's also important to identify your skills and your strengths. Are you ambitious, curious, empathetic? Are you a team player or more of a lone ranger when it comes to your work? Are you good at troubleshooting, or do you think quick on your feet? All of these skills and strengths can be developed when you're building that brand messaging, and kind of like, think of it as an elevator pitch, but it's definitely a lot more comprehensive than that. But all of those things can go into building that. And once you've started to define yourself for you, it's also good to kind of cross-reference with individuals who may know you well, think counselors, teammates, or classmates, and ask them for 3 words that they may use to describe you, just to see if the way that you see yourself or the way that you would like to portray yourself to the world is actually how you're coming across to others. And then once you get the feedback from others, you check in with yourself and you think about the kind of person you want to be versus the job that you want to do. You can sit down and begin to craft your brand statement. LinkedIn has a spot right at the top where it's your About Me section, or think of it like your objective on your resume. This is kind of where you can start to craft that thought. And then thirdly, you want to build your online presence that showcases your skills and accomplishments. So now I'm going to play a couple of videos from a webinar we did earlier this summer where we went into topics on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn and how you can use them in your career journey. So give me just a second and I will get that started for you. And please do not hesitate to drop any questions that you might have in the chat box during these videos. We will take time again at the end of this discussion to answer any questions you guys have. Oops, 1 second, sorry.
Super important to me, but also everyone on this panel today. For me personally, I found every job that I've had up to this point through social media. So whether it's been through Twitter, GroupMe, Facebook, Instagram, at some point in time throughout the process, I was engaged with someone who worked for the company through my social media. Twitter, which is the first platform that we'll speak about today, is extremely important because as it relates to digital platforms, Twitter is an ongoing conversation. It's an ongoing networking platform. It's an ongoing informational interviewing platform. And so to control what employers see, to control what organizations see, first and foremost, honor that first impression, which is first your profile picture as well as your bio. What do you want the world to know? And that's the first thing that I always ask students, also peers when they're creating their Twitter or revamping their Twitter. Because it's crucial to put that in your bio so that that's the first thing they see, but the first thing they can also refer to, when having conversation with you. Personality is extremely encouraged. So if you use emojis, use emojis. If you say certain words like y'all, like I say y'all all the time, like I'm gonna include y'all like in my bio, but also my tweets. Additionally, in your bio, you want to cultivate affinity. So as we may or may not know, but through Twitter, you can add different accounts. And so, include any organization, any affinity groups that you're a part of to show that one, you're connected with said group, but then two, those that will come in contact with your profile have more of a reason to engage with you both online and offline as well. Lastly, within the bio section, include any personal websites, LinkedIn URL, your LinkedIn URL, or any websites or social causes you may be passionate about. And again, I will show an example of that in just a second. So as you know, you have your profile picture, you have your bio, but then in the background, similar to LinkedIn, you have a header. One platform that you can use to create a header that is not just visible, but also congruent to who you are is Canva. So using Canva, and they have different formats that you can use. They also have a header section that you can honestly just pull a template from. But in this, in your header, you want to include your mission and vision statement if possible, right? And if you can't include the entire statement, include a few words, keywords that are important to you. You can also include your personal values in that header section because again, people are going to read, top. It does not have to be follow the same guidelines as LinkedIn, but it can be something that's related to your career or personal life. But again, I want to emphasize that personality is key in every phase of your Twitter profile. So as you click to the next slide, I wanted to include an example of what my current Twitter, current and really forever Twitter has looked like over the last several months. So you see where the cursor is right now, my profile picture. So I'm not wearing a bow tie today, but I'm often in a bow tie. So when people see this picture, they see me on Canvas, they see congruence, and it's easy for me to be recognized in person as it is on social media. Jumping up to the header, you see the words identify passion, inspire vision, and walk in purpose, which is my personal mission statement. It's something that you'll continue to hear be reiterated through every platform, whether that's my Twitter, my Instagram, podcast, LinkedIn. You'll see those three statements anywhere you look. Your ad name is extremely important. So similar to any email addresses that you would have created, making sure it's appropriate, for your role and for your career. Making sure it identifies who you are. You don't want people to have to look at your Twitter and then try to Google you to find out what your real name is. Just be straight up and use a name that reflects who you are, but also who you want to become. As I mentioned before, your bio is extremely important to creating affinity, but also creating connections with your followers on the Twitter platform. So as you read my bio, I include an educator as I work at the University of Maryland. I'm currently a student like yourselves. I'm at the University of Maryland as well. Scrolling through, you'll see that I used to work at the NCAA. I'm an alum of Ohio State and South Carolina. And so I added those accounts so that people, one, saw that who I was connected to, but then two, to highlight, showcase, and really promote the organizations and institutions that I worked for and have attended in the past. Go Mob is something as my fraternity motto. So anyone that's related to my fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, they know that I'm a brother in that fraternity, but also across the division, Divine Nine, council as well. I included my pronouns, not just to show that I am aware, but also inclusive of and understand the importance of using personal pronouns, and not just in person, but also on digital platforms as well. And then including my podcast, that's something I'm continuing to try to promote and increase listeners for as we travel along our journeys together. You can include the location. So the location as you see is 513, which is not any area code related to the DMV. That is the area code of Cincinnati, Ohio, which I do call home. So again, those that may come to my profile and see, read my bio, they see my header, and then they say, oh, he's from Cincinnati, he's an Ohioan. Again, that could be a point of contact and a point of communication that I can leverage in the future. And then last but not least, my link tree, which is a link that includes a bunch of different links that I have connections and ownership of, but easily clickable for people to read and follow. And last but not least, my birthday is on March 18th. I'm Pisces, so if you all want to share any birthday gifts with me next year, happy to receive that over in the Xfinity Center. So that's my profile, but I want to highlight a profile of a student at the University of Maryland. So this is Taylor Wilson. Taylor's currently a rising sophomore on the softball team. And I included her profile because I know when looking at my past Twitter bio and header, it may have seemed overwhelming as it relates to, you don't have that many experiences, you don't know what to say, you've been working in the field a little bit longer than I have. So as a current student, I work with Taylor to truly help her identify what she wants to include on her Twitter. So first and foremost, looking at the header, as you all know, you don't know, that's the Nats Stadium, the reigning world champions. So she's a big Nats fan. So anyone that comes on her page, whether you like baseball or not, like sports is something that's important to Taylor. Her profile picture is one that she chose not to use a composite photo, but an action shot of her at bat in a Maryland uniform. So again, you're creating community and affinity with those who enter or who visit your page. Looking at her bio, Fearfully and Wonderfully Made is a part of a Bible verse. So those who share Taylor's same religion or spirituality, instant connection. She added turf softball, which is something she did not do in the past. So she just had University of Maryland softball team. But I said, to be more concise, but also show affinity to your school, in your program, let's include that ad. And then be a good human, do the right thing is her personal motto. And she also included her pronouns as well. Same thing. She included a link to a website for a social cause that she's extremely passionate about, not just right now, but in her professional and personal life. And my birthday is next March, but her birthday is September. So feel free to drop off anything in Xfinity in a couple months. Next slide for us, Rachel. So a couple of things related to Twitter that I really want to highlight, which is the direct messaging feature. So sending a DM. This is extremely important, particularly to help take the conversation offline. So as I mentioned before, conversation on Twitter is ongoing. It's really infinite in many ways. And so to help personalize and humanize technology, DMs are an important part to not only be aware of, but also utilize in your engagement on this platform. As I mentioned before, you can continue dialogue from the timeline from your TL. So if you've seen, over the last 12 or so hours, for example, the news that was found in Bubba Wallace's garage, the NASCAR race down in Talladega. Your TL may have deviated from having more poignant conversations about what had happened with NASCAR. That's an opportunity that if you saw a tweet that someone has shared, to send them a DM and say, hey, insert name, I saw that you tweeted, said language, would love to talk with you more about, your thoughts, right? a conversation, a more organic conversation that you can have without broadcasting it to the entire world. You can provide and seek clarification from tweets. So if someone shares something that you may have a question about that you don't feel comfortable, replying to directly on your timeline, again, just shooting them a DM. It's important to understand that oftentimes you both have to be following each other, so keep that in mind. But another way to help learn more about what's being shared on your TL. You can connect with industry-specific professionals, and so as Kenyatta had mentioned, building community is going to be a common thread throughout all of our slides today. And so being mindful of who you follow, but also how you engage with different people on Twitter. It's great for informational interviews, and I've done several, not even several, tens and maybe hundreds of informational interviews from people that I've met on Twitter, given that they have similar profiles on LinkedIn as well. But the big thing that I want to emphasize from this slide is that communicate on Twitter, particularly in the DM feature, similar to how you would an email. So, address the person by name, right? Close off with your name. If it's someone that you may not know as well, include your email address so they can follow with you offline or off of Twitter, should they decide to do so. But you don't want to get into the situation where you feel like you're texting someone in a DM, right? You can use Twitter in ways that are more professional. You can use Twitter in ways that are more deliberate than many other social platforms. But be mindful of how you're communicating. One of the things about Twitter that's extremely unique is that you can have industry-specific community conversation. These things can be great for idea generation and think takes, right? Oftentimes, whether it's on Zoom or even group discussions in class or in person, people's voices are not always heard. In Twitter chats, you have an opportunity where everyone has an equal voice to contribute to the conversation. One of the phenomenal things about Twitter chats is that you're bringing a community of people, not just across the country, but across the world, to have discussion on different topics, which gives you an opportunity to not only add value to a conversation, but also elevate your personal brand. Prime example of this is that someone I know hosted a Twitter chat a couple weeks ago and got 200 followers just from hosting the chat. We understand followers aren't everything, but it can help build your professional community and engage with people who are like-minded and purpose-driven as well. Some examples of different Twitter chats that I've seen. The first one is YP Sports Chat, which stands for Young Professional Sports Chat. So for those who want to, work in sports or work in a field that runs parallel to sports, I would highly, highly, highly suggest you search this hashtag on Twitter and engage with this chat. It's every Tuesday. And then the new normal, which is something that our athletic department and the athletic department at the University of South Carolina hosted together twice over the last several months. So last thing from Twitter, and this is going to be, again, a common thread, a concurrent thread throughout the presentation, is self-governance. We aren't here to tell you what to post or what not to post, but are here to encourage you to think about what rules guide what you post, right? That's not just the tweets themselves, but also pictures, videos, and emojis. What rules guide, who and what you tag on Twitter, what you retweet versus quote tweet, what you decide to DM to different people. But one that I think does not get enough attention is what you decide to like and comment, which is just as impactful and influential in how you show up in this digital space that we refer to as the bird or Twitter. But most importantly, make sure you write these things down and keep yourselves aware and mindful of it as we transition to our next digital platform.
All right, so that was our Program Director of Athletics, Timothy Bryson, talking about Twitter. So next, you'll hear from me talking a little bit about how to use Instagram to share your personal brand. All right, I'm back, guys. All right, I will be talking about Instagram today. Thank you, Tim, for that awesome overview on Twitter. For me, Instagram is my social media platform of choice. So I think that it's important to build authentic relationships online now more than ever. We're very disconnected, and so it's important to feel connected to those that you can through our digital platforms. And there's a multitude of ways to do that and focus your social media efforts around your career success. So right now it's very paramount that we as users go beyond passively scrolling and move to like actively engaging with our professional networks. So the first thing on my list is showcasing yourself. Just as Timothy just explained, you know, everything from your profile picture, which is a little less apparent on Instagram. You get your little circle right at the top. So there's not too much you can do to make that a bad first impression. But more importantly, your bio on Instagram is what typically catches new followers' eyes. So I like to think of my bio as a brief elevator pitch. Your elevator pitch is gonna typically be no longer than 30 seconds if you're talking face-to-face or even virtually with an employer. So think of it as an even briefer elevator pitch. You can use snap phrases to mention your goals or aspirations, as well as any accomplishments that you are working on currently or have achieved in the past. It's like a sneak peek into who you are before I have to scroll through your grid to figure that out. So definitely take some time to craft that image and make sure that it represents who you are and what you're gonna see when you come to my page. Obviously, it's very important to find new and creative ways to display your talents and projects. I think when it comes to your journey through undergraduate, you know, you work on a lot of projects. Obviously, you're working on your major to move into a career. So we have work as projects, group assignments, and even things that we discover on our own, our hobbies that we throw ourselves into. Instagram is a great way to snapshot all the work that you've been doing over the course of the months, whether in school or on your own in your free time, and chronicleize that for people to see. So say you're a robotics major and your last class assignment, you had a group assignment to work together and create your robot in whatever the assignment was. A picture with your team and a picture of your finished product that you built. Nice caption to say what is the purpose of this this electronic, your robot, and it explains to people what you did and why it should be relevant to them. Now, say your followers aren't necessarily a part of the industry that you're posting that content for. That is where your hashtags would come into play. We'll talk about hashtags a little later in our Instagram overview. But again, piggybacking off of Tim, personality and authenticity is key. We can't tell you what not to post, and granted, for some employers, they might favor a bit more personable content than others. It really just depends on the industry that you are trying to pursue. So figure out what you want the world to know about you, and figure out how you can make that come across with your photos. Developing connections and building networks. Instagram has instituted quite a few features that helps to now build community on the platform rather than passively scrolling and liking images. So the save feature, Instagram Save, is a good way to start to access content that you found and favorited anytime. With all the algorithms on Instagram, new posts and generated content tends to get pushed down on our timeline, so we are not able to access everything that the people that we follow post in a timely manner. So with the save feature, you can kind of fight back on that Instagram and curate a feed which is more attuned to what you're looking for. You can use the feature to create like an industry bucket. So if you are a marketer and you want to learn about different types of marketing, you'll go to a hashtag marketing, and you might find digital marketing, email marketing, and then social media marketing. 3 different realms, but they all fall under marketing. Within your save feature, you can take the specific content, create a folder, and begin to build up the circle of content that gets generated by your save features. Think of it like a super like on Tinder. That's about the equivalent of an Instagram save over just liking the content on Instagram. You'll be able to find it quicker when you need to access it, and it'll begin to populate your field your timeline in a new way. Hashtags are also a good way to curate your feed. Now you're able to follow hashtags that resonate with you. So instead of just having to go to the search and discovery feature, you can get content populated right on your timeline based on that feature, or excuse me, based on that hashtag. So it'll be mixed in with your current followers, whether that's family and friends, but then you can start to be exposed to different topics and subject areas and content within the industries that you're looking to follow. Using hashtags when you post your content as well allows you to gain relevant followers to your topic, people that might not be able to find you due to the algorithms, and it can incite engagement with your posts. So you want to use that to find those like-minded people and those influencers within your industries as well. Oh, you can go back, Rachel, one more thing. And conversation, joining the conversation. Obviously, none of this matters if we are not engaging with the people in our circles and the content. So sliding into the DMs, you can laugh at that, and I'm sure we all think of the same thing when we hear the phrase, but direct messaging, it allows you to step outside of the bubble that is Instagram and start a new conversation offline. I don't need to go too deep into that because Tim did a great overview of direct messaging. On most of the platforms, they're generally the same in how they operate, but you want to use original and non-generic copy that highlights that you've taken the time to explore or research the content that was posted, either the individual's background or if it's a company that you're reaching out to online as well. It just shows, just in a cover letter, you would tailor your content to the employer or the position that you are applying to. You want to do the same thing with your job, or excuse me, with your direct message. And you can also use find employee profiles at companies that you're interested in to figure out what type of content they post. So you can see, do we align in some of the values that the employees have as well? You can figure out, is this a good fit for me based on some of the image that you curate from the employee profiles. So that's also a good way to find out and do some digging into the background of a company. It's very important, and this is a good tip, to take notice in how individuals communicate with their audience, whether it's conversational, informative, or friendly and strong. And when you reach out in a direct message, you want to make sure you kind of try to mirror the tone or the writing style that the individual uses. Yes, make it authentic to you, but it helps to establish a sense of trust between you guys since you don't really know each other. We like to see ourselves in other people, and that's a great way to kind of break the ice a little bit. And then obviously watch and reply to IG stories. I'm pretty sure that's self-explanatory, but it's just another way to jump into the conversation. I have a few pictures I'll go through really quick, just in case you didn't know. So the Instagram Save feature that I mentioned can be used by going on to Twitter and clicking that little bookmark icon that's right down in the bottom under any post. Once you click that bookmark, you'll be, a little box will raise up from the bottom, and it'll ask you if you want to save it to a folder, a bookmarked folder that you've already created, or you can save it into a general post. So the second picture on this page just shows some of the different folders that I've created for our University Career Center, social media inspiration that I like the way this was laid out, so I want to reference it for later. Career advice that might have been good to hear online that we can repurpose for later. So it's all in what you want to do and how you want to break down the different research areas that you are interested in. And here are some examples of professional versus personal Instagram grids. So this first Instagram is by Find Spark. Emily Meether is a colleague of mine, and this is one of her companies. So this is more of a professional Instagram grid. She chooses to keep her personal and professional separate. You can see there's a lot of text posts and just notes to, for example, things that are going on in our world right now, as well as her content on career help. This is a great profile for you to follow if you're looking for some career tips as well. So Find Spark, but this keeps it pretty clean, professional. There's no images of people. So it's more informational. Next, please. Now this is a personal Instagram grid. This is one of my personal profiles that I didn't mind sharing. I would not mind if my employer were to find this profile of me. It has nothing to do necessarily with my career goals, but it engages my users and my followers, and it allows my company to see who I am and what I'm into. If the University Career Center came across this profile before I was an employee, to me, it would say I'm fun, I like to cook, and I'm motivational. So if that's the image you wanted to create for yourself, this profile is private. Anyone can find it. I'm not trying to hide it. I'm okay with this being online. And then the last but not least, this is one of our recent graduates from the University of Maryland. Her name is Misha Buckner, and she is a creative. She is a photographer and artist. And this is her professional and sort of personal account. So what she uses is she puts up her artwork, whether it's drawing or painting or her photography, but then she also posts some snapshots and candids of herself. I believe her first picture is a play on one of the latest TikTok trends where everyone's taking their mirror outside and like taking all the cool pictures. So she still has some personality thrown in there while you can see the visual representation of her work. And it's a great example of the best of both worlds kind of Instagram layouts. All right, and last but not least, we have a last video from Rachel Rohrbeck. She is our CM&S program director at the Career Center, and she is going to go into LinkedIn, which is known as the career social networking site.
So I'm going to talk about LinkedIn, which I joke is the least fun social media. I say that as someone who would rather spend hours on Instagram than on LinkedIn, but I do work in career services and I know the value of it and how important it is, and hopefully you do too. I think most people think of LinkedIn as the professional social media, although we've seen that both Instagram and Twitter can be that as well. I think what most people know of LinkedIn is that it can be in your online resume, and that is true. It's a great place to have all of your work and your experiences gathered together so someone can see it, but it can be so much more than that. Of course, this is a place to cultivate both professional and personal connections. I've talked to students that think it's just a place for professional connections, and if someone isn't in their field or industry, they shouldn't connect with them on LinkedIn, and that's false. Absolutely. Connect with your classmates, your roommate, your friends, your cousins, uncles, whoever, regardless of what field they're in, because they may have a connection that would then be your second connection that could be in your field. You might also know someone that you can connect them to. So please remember that on LinkedIn, it doesn't just have to be people in your field. It can be people that you know that are in other fields as well. This is also a place like our other apps and sites to follow companies or organizations that you're interested in. If they're posting something there, it's something that they want people to know about. This is often a place where they might brag about a project they're working on or an award that they received, or they were called best company for X, Y, and Z. So this is a way for you to find out that information and then use that information when you're applying. Maybe it's something you add to your cover letter because you saw that they just won this award, or it's something that you use when you reach out for an informational interview with someone, or you use it in an interview. But it's a great way to find information. It's the information that they want you to know because they're sharing it out. So that's a good place to find out. Join groups. This could be groups from specific professional organizations. Personally, I'm in a group that's the Eastern Association of Colleges and Employers, but you can also be a part of groups that are just started by, someone in student affairs that wants to say, all student affairs professionals that are interested in this, join this group. It can be a way to broaden your network and get to know more people that are interested in the same work field industry that you're in. It can also be a place to either write recommendations or gather your own recommendations from past or current colleagues. My trick, the best way to get a recommendation is to write one for someone else. You write a quick, and they don't have to be long, a quick recommendation for someone, chances are they're going to return the favor to you and write a quick recommendation. You can, of course, always ask for them. If you know you're going to be job searching and you want some more recommendations on your LinkedIn page, reach out to someone and say, would you be willing to write a recommendation for me for LinkedIn? I'd love to write one for you too. I think besides the fact that most people, if you have a good relationship, would want to do it for you anyways. If they know that you're going to write one for them, that's an extra motivation. Plus, it can make you feel better knowing that you're not just asking for something without willing to give something in return. LinkedIn, of course, is a place to share articles, either ones that maybe you've written or ones that you found interesting on hot topics or current trends in your field, share events that you plan to go to or are hosting, and of course, projects. The biggest thing about LinkedIn, and unfortunately, I think the thing that most people don't know is how you can use it to find other people using the Career Insights search tool. So I do list a link there, and it will be on the next couple slides as well. But the link will go to a video to show you how to get to what I'm about to show you in screenshots. So LinkedIn gives you the opportunity to go to your university page. So in the search bar, typing in University of Maryland. Once you get there, there's a bar on the left-hand side that says has a menu of things. One of them is alumni. So when I click to the next page, you'll see on the left-hand side there's that menu. When you click alumni, it will bring you to this page. And this is where you can search people that are on LinkedIn that say they went to Maryland. So you can see there's over 300,000 people. This is my favorite tool and reason to use LinkedIn. Like I said, I feel like most people don't know it, which is why there's that link at the bottom. It'll show you how to get here and kind of walk you through the process if you haven't seen this tool before. But basically, you can use that search bar to search by a number of different things, keywords, titles. You can also use start and stop date at the top. If you want to find a more recent alum, maybe not someone who's further in their career, but someone who's closer and remembers what it's like to be a student, you could change that start year to 2015 if you want to. You can kind of play around with those things. And then there are these categories. They're kind of at the middle of the page there. So you can see you can search by where they live. If your job search or people that you want to connect with are in the DC area, you can click on that bar right underneath Washington, DC metro area, and it will then filter it down to 121,000 and show those people that meet that filter underneath. You can also look by where they work. You'll see University of Maryland is at the top. It's always at the top, at least for this area. And that's not just because we all come back to work at Maryland like myself, but that a lot of people might have jobs that they had part-time or internships while they were on campus at Maryland. And so those positions show up too. So what you can do there is, again, like if you're interested in Deloitte, click on Deloitte's bar, or if there's a company that you're not seeing in that 10 to 15 that they show you on the website, click that ad in the corner and then start typing in the organization that you're interested in. I have seen big companies, small companies, it all just depends on where we have someone from Maryland working. So even if it's just one person, you could search for it and find them. When you click next at the top of the page, right above where they live, they'll take you to the next set of categories, and they are what they do. So you can look by industry or field, also what they studied. So again, it'll show the top 10 or 15. So if your major is not there, click add and start typing it in. But again, you can click on it if you see yours. You'll see that right underneath, there's the start of what are people's profiles. This is what happens as you play with those filters. As you play with those filters, they show you the profiles and the people that fall in those numbers. So if I were to click computer science, this would narrow me down to 16,577, and those couple of people would potentially change. But then you have the opportunity to find the people that are doing the work that you're interested in, potentially in the area that you're interested in, and look at their profiles, see what experiences they've had, and request to connect. Biggest recommendation, always add a note. This is huge. If you don't know someone, you can still request to connect, and I would encourage it. If you're doing it and you found them through this, click to add a note when you request to connect and say, I see that you went to Maryland, I saw that you majored in this, or I see that you work here and I'm interested in that. Can we connect? Give them some context. I'm sure you've all had someone that has requested to follow you on one of your sites and you're like, I don't know who you are, I have no idea why, or they want to connect with you on LinkedIn and you're not sure whether you want to or not. If someone gives you that context, you're going to be more likely to say, oh yeah, sure, great. You're interested in the same thing I am, let's connect. It's going to lead to people that don't know you being more likely to accept your request to connect. All right, so switching out of the LinkedIn sphere for a minute and going back to all of the overarching social medias and the sites that we've talked about. you really want to use these sites to find and to build your community or to build your network of people. Following appropriate professional organizations can be a great way to do that. If you are interested in sports writing or sports journalism, finding the professional organizations that promote that field in that industry and following them on any and all of these to see what they're posting and what things are happening are going to be a great way for you to stay tuned in and to join in that conversation. We've already kind of talked about some of the other sites like Twitter and Instagram, learning the hashtags to follow that are appropriate to your interests, making sure to follow them. A huge other point, follow up. Don't just connect with people and forget about them. It can be great, and you can have, 500 connections on LinkedIn, but if you don't follow up with some of them and the ones that you're more interested in staying connected with, it's going to be harder to come back into conversation with that person if it's been a while since you've talked. So that doesn't mean you have to connect with all 500 people every week or every month, but those people that you really want to connect with, you want to make sure that you're following up and, checking in to see how they are or how that project they said they were working on is doing, or share an article that you think they might be interested in, any way to kind of keep that connection open. And then, of course, please be sure to add your value and your voice to the dialogue. Mutual exchange of energy is really important. A good user of any of these sites is someone who's an active learner. And what we mean by that is someone who's not just going to lurk and see what other people are saying and posting, but someone who's going to add to the conversation, add their voice, talk about how they interpreted what they're seeing or their experience, their perspective. You don't want to just think of other people as the experts. You want to remember that your voice and your experience is important as well. So now I'm tapping Tim again.
Awesome. So as we wrap up today, just a few reminders. First and foremost, again, self-govern and self-governance. Identify and clarify and define what your rules will be while engaging, not just in real life, but also on digital platforms. Number two, understand that digital platforms are an extension of your personal brand, not something different or new, but an extension of who you are. And congruence is super important because that's to be super to the tech when it's not. Build your own community and network, so individualize your own experience and mitigate imposter syndrome. Job search is always happening. So as I mentioned about Twitter, but also very true about LinkedIn and Instagram as well. That every time you leave your house, you're networking. Every time you open your mouth, you're interviewing. Your digital platform is in a continuous job search is always happening. So be mindful of how you're engaging on those sites. And last but certainly not least, keep your information up to date. So if you graduate or you get a new job, update that on LinkedIn. If you move, update that on your social media platform because people are always looking, wanting to engage with you based off some of those characteristics and attributes.
All right, so I hope you guys are able to find some interesting information and to take home some valuable notes from those 3 videos on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I know we're coming up on 5:30, but I do have just a few more things to mention. So as you can see here, we were just talking about LinkedIn, and I am more so in the intermediate stages of building my career. I've been working on my connections and cleaning up my act, as well as developing my brand statement. So I just decided to share my LinkedIn with you all. Feel free to add me and connect with me there. As you can see, I'm a millennial student affairs professional skilled at using online influence as a platform for creating connections. I'm an event planner, which is what I love to do. And I love to connect people with the industry and people that are prominent within their industry and the opportunities that they would like, hence why I'm working at the Career Center right now. But if you go down to my About section, you see that it's a bit more in depth. Yes, I do mention some of my educational and professional background, but I still talk about and focus on what it is I want to do, what inspires me, and who I would like to serve. So an aspiring communications creative with a passion for media, career services, and inspiring all generations to develop their vision through innovative means. And I'm not going to read through the last sentence, but this is the one that mentions my background and my education. But this statement also filters in that I enjoy facilitating enriching programs for students and underserved populations. So that is who I intend to impact. Ethan, I'm going to steal the screen really quickly so that I can show you all Timothy Bryson's, the gentleman who was just speaking on Twitter, show you his LinkedIn profile, because he is phenomenal at establishing and creating his brand, and he's a lot further in the process. As you can see, he has his corresponding image, just like he mentioned with his Twitter. He has his voice prominent on Twitter as well. He is an educator, a PhD student, and an entrepreneur. He's recently launched a business, which is Walk with TFB. He's the founder and president, which is now on LinkedIn as well. So in addition to his work at the university and being a student in school, he now is an entrepreneur of his own business, which is all mentioned here. And then in his bio, he talks more about who he is: a Black millennial educator with a demonstrated history in working in higher education. He was a former athlete. He speaks a lot about himself. And then like his purpose, which is to help others identify their passion, inspire vision, and walk with purpose. And as you get further in building your brand, like we mentioned, it's not just about a fancy photo and a nice elevator pitch, right? It's also about the conversations that you engage in. So Timothy on LinkedIn, as well as on his own personal sites, he has started creating blog posts. And one of the cool things about LinkedIn as well is that you can add articles in which you have been featured in. So this was that the new normal conversation that he mentioned during the Twitter chat. There was an article written about it. And so now that's posted and featured on his page, as well as any content that he creates himself. So I'm sure Timothy would not mind if you all connected with him either. You can tell him that he got the shout out from our workshop today. Ethan, you can go ahead and take the screen back for me. Next slide. Yep, perfect. So the last thing I want to take away, you guys to take away, is this acronym by brand coach and business advisor Jennifer McClare. She created this to help you assess your personal brand as you continue to develop it. Your personal brand should always be bold, relevant, authentic, notable, and differentiated. Bold, meaning it supports a larger goal that others care about. Relevant, meaning it is in line with what you do or what you aspire to do. Authentic, your pitch can be aspirational, but make sure you're able to live up to it. You don't want to aim too high, but don't lower aim as high as you can, but make sure it's still attainable. And it should also be synonymous with how others describe you. It should be notable, meaning concise and memorable, and leaves people wanting more, wanting to engage with you more and get to know you. And then again, differentiated. Remember that different is better than better. So let it show how it separates you from others who are similarly situated. I think we had one question come through the chat, so I'll answer that quickly. Catherine wants to know, how can you separate professional and personal social media profiles if you need to use your name in both? So if you have to separate, if you have a personal and a professional account, one, you won't be able to have the same handle for two separate accounts. So what I would suggest is your professional account be linked to your name in the social media handles. So for example, at Kenyatta Malloy would be my Instagram or Twitter professional account. But then for my personal account, rather than putting your personal name in the handle, which is searchable, put it in the bio. You can list your name if you really want people to be able to find your identity that way, but it's not necessarily searchable through Google. Now, test that out just to be on the safe side once you do it, but I don't believe that if it's listed in your bio for certain social media profiles, that might not be the same for every site. But if it's listed in your bio and not the name, your naming mechanism, then you should be fine to have it linked to your personal. So if, Ethan, if you could post our kiosk one last time, if you haven't checked in for this workshop today, If you could go to the link that Ethan is going to post in the chat, use the access code 1234, and then sign in with your university ID number so that we can just have a count of everyone that came to this presentation today. And then on the screen, you can see I have some information for you to sign up for our Career the Turtle e-newsletter. It's a bi-weekly newsletter and career digest that comes right to your inbox. If you go to go.umd.edu/UCC e-news, you can get signed up right for that. We will send you industry trends, jobs, as well as tips and tricks, depending on whatever that subject is for that week, of course, straight to your inbox. So if you can't make it to one of our wonderful events, you can always figure out what you missed that week or find new information in our newsletter. As well as if you're looking for some career tips on the go, follow our social media accounts at UMD Career Center on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All right. And we post the same thing there, from jobs and internships to careers advice to our events, as well as this coming spring, we plan to do a lot more IG takeovers with employers and trying to do some quick tip IG story takeovers with different colleges. So that's exciting content coming up in the next year. Next slide, Ethan. And last but not least, here's just a screenshot of some of our upcoming events leading into next week, the first week of November. So if you're interested, the School of Public Health Career Fair Expo is on Wednesday, November 4th from 2 to 5, but you can find all of these events on our career calendar on careers.umd.edu. And you can also find them all in Careers for Terps. So if you haven't logged in yet this semester, go ahead and log into Careers for Terps, see what other events we have coming up for the end of the year, and also jobs and internships that have been posted there lately. So I'd like to thank you all once again for attending our workshop, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your semester. Thanks, Terps. Happy homecoming.